Netflix just released a 35-minute documentary that will absolutely wreck you. It's called All the Empty Rooms, and it won the Oscar for Best Documentary Short Film a few weeks ago. The entire film is just photographers walking through children's bedrooms that haven't been touched since the morning those kids left for school and never came back. You see their unmade beds, their homework assignments, their toothbrushes, everything frozen exactly as they left it. But here's what the documentary doesn't show you. It doesn't tell you what happened. It doesn't explain the timeline. It doesn't talk about the failures that led to these tragedies. That's what I'm doing today. I'm covering 4 children from that film: Hallie Scruggs, Gracie Muehlberger, Dominic Blackwell, and Jackie Cazares. I'm telling you who they were, what happened to them, and the warning signs that were ignored. This video discusses school shootings for educational purposes. If you're struggling, please call or text 988. Let's start with November 14th, 2019, Santa Clarita, California, Saugus High School. It was a Thursday morning, just another school day. Students were gathering in the quad before first period, hanging out with friends, finishing homework, the usual. And at 7:38 a.m., a 16-year-old student named Nathaniel Burhow walked into that quad with a .45 caliber handgun he'd pulled from his backpack, and in just 16 seconds, he fired 6 shots. 2 students were killed, 3 others were injured, and then Nathaniel turned the gun on himself. One of those students was Dominic Blackwell. He was 14 years old, a freshman. His friends called him Dom. He loved soccer, played for a local club team, known for being kind to absolutely everyone. His teammates said he was the type of kid who would check on you if you were having a bad day. He'd make you laugh. He'd include you. On the morning of November 14th, Dom was standing in the quad when Nathaniel opened fire. He was shot and died at the scene. The other student killed was Gracie Ann Muehlberger. She was 15 years old, a sophomore, and here's what makes Gracie's story even more heartbreaking. Weeks after her death, her parents found letters she'd written to her future self. Gracie had written them as part of a school assignment. Letters to herself at age 18, at age 25, at age 30, and in those letters, she talked about her dreams. She wanted to travel. She wanted to go to college. She wanted to fall in love and get married and have kids. She talked about the person she hoped to become. Her parents found those letters in her bedroom, the same bedroom that would later be photographed for All the Empty Rooms, and they'll never get to see her open them. On the morning of November 14th, Gracie was also in the quad. She was shot and later died at the hospital. Now let's talk about Nathaniel Burhow, the shooter. He was 16 years old, a junior at Saugus. By all accounts, he was quiet, smart, kept to himself. He didn't have a criminal record. He wasn't known for being violent or aggressive. In fact, most students who knew him were shocked when they found out it was him. There were signs. Nathaniel's father had died in 2017 from a heart attack when Nathaniel was just 14. His father had been a gun enthusiast, owned multiple firearms, took Nathaniel shooting at ranges, and after his father's death, Nathaniel struggled. He became more withdrawn. His grades dropped. Friends said he seemed depressed. On his 16th birthday, November 12th, 2019, just 2 days before the shooting, Nathaniel posted on Instagram, "Saugus, have fun at school tomorrow." Nobody understood what it meant until it was too late. On the morning of November 14th, Nathaniel walked into the quad at 7:38 a.m. Security footage shows him pulling a .45 caliber pistol from his backpack. He fired 6 shots in 16 seconds. The first 5 shots hit students. The 6th shot, he turned on himself. He was airlifted to the hospital in grave condition, and at 3:32 p.m. that afternoon, he was declared brain dead. He died the next day, November 15th, 2019. Investigators never found a manifesto, no note, no clear motive. The gun he used was unregistered and had been kept in his home, likely one of his father's firearms. Nathaniel's mother told police she had no idea he had access to it. 3 students survived their injuries, but Dominic and Gracie didn't. Rest in peace, Dominic Blackwell and Gracie Muehlberger. Now we move forward to May 24th, 2022, Uvalde, Texas, Robb Elementary School. This is one of the most devastating school shootings in American history. 19 children and 2 teachers were killed, and the police response was so catastrophically bad that it's still being investigated to this day. One of those children was Jackie Cazares. She was 9 years old, 4th grade. Jackie had a twin sister named Annabelle, and according to their family, you could always tell them apart because Jackie was the loud one. the one who laughed the hardest, talked the most, made everyone around her smile. She loved softball, loved her family, and she was inseparable from her twin. On the morning of May 24th, Jackie and Annabelle were both in their 4th grade classroom, room 112, when the shooter entered the building. Let me give you the timeline, because the details matter here. At 11:21 a.m., 18-year-old Salvador Ramos shot his grandmother in the face at their home. She survived and called 911. Ramos then stole her truck and drove to Robb Elementary School, crashing the vehicle into a ditch about 100 yards from the building. At 11:33 a.m., Ramos entered the school through an unlocked door and immediately walked to rooms 111 and 112, two adjoining 4th grade classrooms. Jackie was in room 112. Her twin sister Annabelle was in the same room. According to survivor accounts, the children had been told to hide under tables and stay quiet, protocol they'd learned during active shooter drills. But it didn't matter. Jackie was killed. Her twin sister Annabelle survived by playing dead. Now here's the part that makes this even more infuriating. Police officers arrived at the school at 11:35 a.m., just 2 minutes after Ramos entered. They approached rooms 111 and 112, but when Ramos fired at them, they retreated into the hallway, and then they waited. For 77 minutes, nearly 400 law enforcement officers stood in that hallway, while children called 911 from inside the classrooms, begging for help. At 12:16 p.m., a student called 911 and said 8 or 9 students are still alive in room 112. At 12:21 p.m., Ramos fired again, while officers were still in the hallway. It wasn't until 12:50 p.m. that a Border Patrol tactical unit finally breached the classroom door and killed Ramos. By then, 19 children and 2 teachers were dead. Jackie's father, Javier Cazares, was one of the parents who showed up at the school while the shooting was happening. He begged police to let him go in. He said he'd go in himself if they wouldn't. They held him back, and while he stood outside, both of his daughters were inside that classroom. One of them didn't come home. Now let's talk about Salvador Ramos, because this is a case where warning signs were everywhere, and systems failed at every single level. Salvador Ramos was born May 16, 2004, in Fargo, North Dakota. He moved to Uvalde as a child with his mother, Adriana Reyes, and his older sister, and from the very beginning, his life was marked by chaos and trauma. His father, Salvador Ramos Sr., had a criminal history, arrested for assault with a deadly weapon, evading arrest, and domestic violence. He was largely absent from Salvador's life. His mother, Adriana, struggled with severe drug addiction. Neighbors and family friends said she used methamphetamine and other substances. She had financial problems, couldn't keep steady work, and the family lived in poverty. Salvador grew up bouncing between his mother's house and his grandmother's house, never having a stable home. And according to a former girlfriend who later spoke to the FBI, Salvador told her he had been by one of his mother's boyfriends when he was young. When he told his mother about it, she didn't believe him. Salvador had a severe speech impediment, a stutter, and was relentlessly bullied for it throughout his childhood. Kids mocked him constantly. He became withdrawn, isolated, struggled to make friends. He was identified as at risk in school, but never received the special education services he needed. His relationship with his mother was violent and toxic. Neighbors reported hearing screaming matches between them regularly. Police were called to their home multiple times. Salvador would film his mother during these confrontations and post the videos on Instagram, calling her an expletive and saying she wanted to kick him out. In one video from a few months before the shooting, he's screaming at her while police are present. His mother eventually kicked him out. He moved in with his grandmother Celia Gonzalez full-time. He slept on a mattress on the floor of a small room. His grandfather said Salvador refused to go to school because he hated the bullying. In 2020, he missed over 100 days of school. By fall 2021, Uvalde High School involuntarily withdrew him. He had only completed 9th grade, and his behavior was escalating rapidly. Friends said he would cut his own face with knives for fun. He told people he liked the way it felt. He drove around at night egging cars and shooting people with BB guns for no reason. He had an obsession with gore, posting videos of beheadings, violent deaths on his social media. He talked about violent acts constantly. He told multiple people he wouldn't live past 18, either because he'd take his own life or wouldn't live long. He also engaged in animal cruelty. According to reports, he would regularly throw dead cats onto his grandparents' property, Nobody knows where he got them or how they died, but he seemed to enjoy it. Online, he started making ominous posts. In April 2022, he messaged someone, "Are you still gonna remember me in 50-something days?" When a friend said they couldn't visit until July or August, Salvador replied, "Damn, that's too late." And then came his 18th birthday. On May 16th, 2022, Salvador turned 18. The night before, his mother took him to Applebee's for his birthday dinner. It was one of the few times they'd spent together peacefully in months. The next morning, Salvador legally purchased an AR-15 style rifle from a federally licensed dealer in Uvalde. 3 days later, on May 19th, he bought a second one. He also purchased 1,740 rounds of ammunition, hollow point bullets designed to expand inside bodies and cause maximum damage. He posted photos of the guns on Instagram, tagging people. One woman he messaged online later said she tried to convince him not to do anything with those weapons, but he wouldn't say what he was planning. Nobody reported him. His grandparents didn't know he had the guns. Nobody intervened. On the morning of May 24th, 2022, 8 days after his 18th birthday, Salvador got into an argument with his grandmother over a phone bill. It wasn't a major fight, but something snapped. He shot her in the face. She survived, stumbling outside screaming, "He shot me! He shot me!" A neighbor called 911. Salvador took his grandmother's truck and drove to Robb Elementary School, the school he had attended as a child. He crashed the truck into a ditch near the building, grabbed his rifle, and walked to an unlocked side door, and he carried out his attack. This case is a textbook example of systematic failure. Childhood ignored, a mother struggling with addiction who couldn't care for her son, a father who abandoned him, severe bullying that went unchecked for years, mental health issues that were never treated, school systems that gave up on him, friends and family who saw warning signs but didn't report them, and a system that made it easier for an 18-year-old with a history of violence, self-harm, and threats to legally purchase weapons of war than to get the psychiatric help he desperately needed. Rest in peace, Jacqueline Cazares, and all 21 victims of the Uvalde shooting. Our final case takes us to March 27th, 2023, Nashville, Tennessee, the Covenant School. 6 people were killed that day, 3 children and 3 adults. And one of those children was Hallie Scruggs. She was 9 years old, 3rd grade. Hallie was the daughter of Chad Scruggs, the senior pastor at Covenant Presbyterian Church, the church affiliated with the school. By all accounts, she was a bright, joyful kid who loved her family, loved her school, and had her whole life ahead of her. On the morning of March 27th at 10:10 a.m., a 28-year-old former student of the school shot through the glass side doors and entered the building, armed with multiple weapons and wearing a tactical vest. At 10:12 a.m., Hallie and 2 classmates, William Kinney and Evelyn Deekhouse, both also 9 years old, were being evacuated down a stairwell by their substitute teacher when the shooter appeared directly in front of them. All 3 children were killed. The substitute teacher, Cynthia Peak, was also killed. The school's headmaster, Dr. Catherine Kunze, heard the gunfire and investigated. She was killed in the hallway. A custodian named Mike Hill was killed when the shooter first entered. At 10:24 a.m., just 14 minutes after the shooter entered, Nashville police shot and killed the attacker. 6 people were dead, 3 adults, Mike Hill, 61, Cynthia Peak, 61, and Dr. Catherine Kunze, 60, and 3 children, Hallie Scruggs, William Kinney, and Evelyn Deekhouse, all 9 years old. Now let's talk about the shooter, Audrey Hale, 28 years old. They identified as transgender and used the name Aiden and he/him pronouns. Just to note, I'm using they/them pronouns throughout this section out of respect for the broader transgender community, not out of respect for this individual specifically. This case is important because it shows how someone can appear completely functional while hiding years of violent planning. Hale attended the Covenant School from kindergarten through 4th grade in the early 2000s and considered those years the happiest of their childhood, but things changed in middle school. Hale attended IT Creswell Middle School of the Arts, a predominantly black public school. They played basketball and felt accepted on the team, but outside of that, they struggled. They were bullied for being a rich white girl and had trouble making friends beyond their basketball teammates. In high school, Hale reconnected with some former teammates but learned they'd developed new interests and social circles. Hale felt abandoned, and according to police reports, Hale became borderline obsessed with the former middle school basketball team. One former teammate, Averiana Patton, received an Instagram message from Hale less than 20 minutes before the shooting. "One day this will make more sense. I've left more than enough evidence behind, but something bad is about to happen." By high school, Hale's mental health was deteriorating. A 2011 psychological assessment found major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, social phobias, anger management issues, and that they were underdeveloped both emotionally and socially. They started therapy and medication, but the issues persisted. After high school, Hale attended art school. Classmates said they had a childlike obsession with staying a child, dressing like a kid, bringing stuffed animals to class, creating childish artwork. Hale believed the stuffed animals were their only true friends, and in 2017, everything changed. Hale watched a documentary about school shootings and became obsessed. They studied mass shooters, particularly the Columbine attackers, and considered them gods because of the notoriety they achieved. They started ranking shooters based on victim counts, and by 2018, they were actively planning their own attack. Their first target was Creswell Middle School, where they'd been bullied and abandoned by their basketball teammates. They created detailed plans and initially set the date for April 13th, 2021, the anniversary of Columbine. But then they had a realization. Because Creswell was a predominantly black school, Hale became concerned about being labeled a racist. They wrote extensively about this in their journals, creating pros and cons lists, comparing Creswell and Covenant as targets. For Creswell, they wrote, "Predominantly black school, black people I love, and black community in despair and suffering. I don't want to cause that, and concerns it would likely influence racist white shooters in future." For Covenant, they wrote, "Predominantly white school, and white people I hate, and Christian school, hate religion." To be absolutely clear, police determined that racial or religious hatred was not the primary motive. The primary motive was notoriety. Hale wanted to die somewhere that made them happy, attack a soft target, and achieve lasting infamy. They wanted books and documentaries made about them. They wanted to be remembered like the Columbine shooters. But the racial element reveals something deeply twisted. They had no moral objection to killing children. They just didn't want to be perceived as racist while doing it. Between 2020 and 2022, Hale legally purchased 7 firearms using federal student aid money. Their parents knew they were under a doctor's care for an emotional disorder, but thought Hale had sold the one gun they knew about. What they didn't know was that Hale was hiding weapons and manipulating therapists to prevent being stopped. On March 27, 2023, Hale left home with a red bag containing weapons, and they carried out the attack they'd been planning for years. Police found over 1,000 pages of writings in 16 notebooks, along with maps, drawings of entry points, and detailed planning documents. This case shows how someone can hide violent intent while appearing functional. Hale was in therapy, had family support, and seemed like a shy, artistic person, but they were manipulating everyone while planning mass violence. Rest in peace, Hallie Scruggs, William Kinney, Evelyn Deekhouse, Mike Hill, Cynthia Peake, and Dr. Catherine Kuntz. 4 children, 4 preserved bedrooms, 4 families who will never stop grieving. The documentary, All the Empty Rooms, shows you what's left behind. The beds that will never be slept in, the toys that will never be played with, and the futures that were stolen. I wanted you to know their names, to know who they were, and I also wanted you to understand the warning signs that were missed. Because here's the thing, every single one of these cases had red flags: mental health struggles, childhood trauma, social isolation, access to weapons, cryptic online posts, changes in behavior. The question isn't whether warning signs exist. The question is whether we're paying attention. If you or someone you know is struggling with thoughts of violence or self-harm, please reach out for help. The 988 Crisis Lifeline is available 24/7. If you see warning signs in someone else, say something. Report it to school counselors, mental health professionals, or law enforcement. These tragedies are preventable, but only if we actually do something. If you haven't seen All the Empty Rooms, I recommend watching it. It's only 35 minutes, but it will stay with you. Thanks for watching, and please never forget their names.